My name is Stephanie Hayes, and I'm 22 years old. I used to think every bride remembers her wedding as the happiest day of her life. But for me, it's the day I learned just how replaceable I was in my parents' eyes. The day I realized love in my family was conditional, weighted, measured, and unevenly handed out. It didn't start that day, of course. It had been building for years in quiet, invisible ways. The missed birthdays, the half-hearted congratulations, the way my parents' smiles always seemed a little wider when they looked at my sister-in-law Lauren than when they looked at me. Lauren entered our family 5 years ago when she married my older brother Adam. She's 29 now, beautiful, confident, and charming in that magnetic, exhausting way that makes everyone orbit her. At family gatherings, she's always the one telling the loudest stories, her laughter filling the room while everyone else listens. And my parents, especially my mom, adore her. They call her our golden girl. They never called me anything like that. When I was growing up, I was the quiet one, the kid who did everything right because that's what got me attention, or at least it used to. I worked hard, got good grades, never made a scene. I thought being the responsible one would make my parents proud. And for a while it did, until Lauren showed up. After that, it was like I became the background music to their favorite song. I remember once, a couple of years ago, I worked 2 part-time jobs in college to save up for a used car. I was proud of myself. I'd scraped together enough to finally get a decent little sedan. When I told my parents I expected excitement, instead my mom smiled absently and said, "That's wonderful, sweetie. Did you know Lauren is looking at brand new SUVs?" A week later, I saw Lauren's new car in the driveway, my parents helping her unload shopping bags from the trunk. I smiled and congratulated her, pretending not to notice the knot in my chest. That was the story of my life, being happy for someone who never seemed to notice me. But when Ben proposed, I thought finally things might be different. Ben is everything I ever wanted in a partner. Kind, patient, grounded. He's the kind of person who listens before he speaks, who notices when you're hurting, even when you're smiling. When we started planning our wedding, I dared to believe this would be the moment my parents saw me again. Their daughter. The one who never asked for much, but always hoped to matter. I picked a date carefully, made sure it didn't conflict with any holidays, family events, or birthdays, especially Lauren's. Her birthdays are like national holidays in our house. My mom spends weeks helping her plan them, buying decorations, talking about themes. Every year, it's Lauren's big day. So I picked a date 1 week after her birthday. Safe, thoughtful, impossible to miss. Or so I thought. About a month before the wedding, my parents invited me over for what my mom called a quick chat. I arrived thinking it was about last-minute details, maybe flowers or family travel plans. I was wrong. My mom was sitting on the couch, hands folded neatly in her lap. My dad stood behind her, shifting his weight the way he does when he's nervous. "Sweetheart," my mom began, "we've been meaning to talk to you about something." I smiled faintly, waiting. That weekend, my dad cut in. "We might not be able to make it to your wedding." For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. "What do you mean?" I laughed softly, trying to keep it light. "You've known about it for months." My mom sighed, as if I was the one being unreasonable. "Lauren really needs us that weekend," she said. "She's planning her birthday celebration. It's a big one this year. She's been under so much stress. We promised we'd help her set up." I stared at her. "You're skipping my wedding for a birthday party." "It's not like that," my dad said quickly. "We'll try to make it to the reception." "The reception?" My voice cracked. "You're seriously choosing balloons and cake over your own daughter's wedding." "Stephanie, please don't make this harder than it is," my mom said softly, like she was comforting me. "You know Lauren counts on us. You've always been so independent. We figured you'd understand." There it was again, independent. Their polite code for "you don't need us." I didn't say anything else. If I did, I might have screamed. I stood up, my throat tight, and left. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my phone buzzing with messages from vendors and bridesmaids. Everyone was excited. Everyone except the 2 people I needed most. I wanted to believe they'd change their minds. That on the day of my wedding, they'd surprise me by walking in smiling proud. That's what parents do, right? They show up. But deep down, I already knew they wouldn't. The next week blurred together final fittings, venue walkthroughs, makeup trials. But underneath it all was this growing ache. Every time someone mentioned family photos, I thought of the 2 empty spots beside me. On the night of the rehearsal dinner, the ache became unbearable. My mom texted me, "Hope everything's going smoothly, sweetie. We'll try to swing by the reception if we can." Swing by. Like my wedding was an errand they might squeeze in between errands for Lauren. Ben noticed my silence. "They're not coming, are they?" he asked quietly. I shook my head. He reached for my hand. Then let's make tomorrow about us. We don't need their approval to have our beginning. He meant it, and I tried to believe it, but when I looked at the seating chart later that night, I couldn't bring myself to remove their names. The morning of the wedding, the sky was clear and gold, the kind of morning people call perfect. I remember looking in the mirror as the stylist adjusted my veil and whispering, "Don't cry, not today." But the moment I walked down the aisle, I saw them, those two empty chairs near the front, and my heart fractured in silence. I smiled for the photos. I said my vows. I kissed the man I loved. But in the quiet spaces between the music and applause, I kept thinking, they chose her. Again. That night, as I watched my parents' social media posts, pictures of them, laughing beside Lauren's balloon arch, captions, bragging about family love, I realized something. Love doesn't always break you with violence. Sometimes it breaks you with absence. And that kind of pain is the hardest to forgive. The morning light on my wedding day felt unreal, too bright, too beautiful for the storm brewing inside me. The makeup artist kept saying how calm I looked, how radiant, how composed. I wanted to tell her the truth, that every smile I gave was a disguise stretched tight over disappointment. Ben knocked softly before stepping into the bridal suite. "You ready?" he asked, his voice warm, grounding. I turned to him, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "As ready as I'll ever be," I whispered. He studied me for a moment. "You don't have to hide it, Stephanie. I know what today means to you, and what it should have meant." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "They said they'd try to come to the reception." He sighed. "You know what that means." "Yeah," I said, looking down at the white satin of my dress. "It means they won't." The drive to the venue was quiet. Outside, everything was in motion. Florists unloading flowers, bridesmaids chatting, the photographer adjusting his camera. But inside me, everything was still, numb. When I stepped out of the car, the guests turned their smiles genuine and full of warmth. I felt like I was walking through a dream, one where everything looked perfect, but something vital was missing. My maid of honor. Lila rushed up and squeezed my hands. "You look incredible," she said, eyes glistening. "Your parents are going to cry when they see you." I hesitated, then lied. "Yeah, maybe." The ceremony began. The music played. The soft notes of piano echoed under the high ceilings of the garden hall. As I started walking down the aisle, my gaze instinctively drifted to the front row. 2 chairs, empty. The sight hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just their absence, it was what it meant. Those empty chairs screamed louder than any apology ever could. I focused on Ben standing at the altar, his expression steady, his eyes full of love and quiet sorrow. He gave a tiny nod as if to say, "I've got you." The ceremony unfolded in a blur. Vows, rings, applause, smiles for the photographer. But my heart wasn't in the moment. It was somewhere else, stuck in the hollow space where my parents should have been. Afterward, during the reception, guests filled the air with laughter and clinking glasses. I moved from table to table, thanking everyone for coming, complimenting dresses, smiling for pictures. It was exhausting pretending to be okay. Halfway through dinner, Lila approached, holding her phone awkwardly. "Stephanie, I'm so sorry. I just saw something online." She turned the screen toward me. It was a photo of my parents at Lauren's birthday party. Balloons, a food truck, a dance floor. My mom in a sequined dress beaming my dad holding a cupcake topped with Lauren's face printed in icing. The caption read, "Proud parents helping Lauren throw the best birthday bash ever. # family first." I stared at it until the image blurred. My stomach twisted. I handed the phone back without a word. Ben noticed immediately. He walked over and slipped his hand into mine. "What happened?" he asked. "They're at the party," I said flatly. "Smiling. Posting. Like this isn't the day their daughter got married." He clenched his jaw. "You don't need them, Stephanie." Maybe he was right. But at that moment, I wanted them. I wanted my mom's voice, my dad's awkward jokes, their pride, even if it was just a sliver of it. I wanted to feel like their child again. Instead, I felt invisible. Later, as we danced, I noticed a few guests whispering. They were probably wondering where my parents were. Some asked outright. "Your mom and dad couldn't make it," one of my aunts said kindly. I forced a smile. Something came up. Each lie burned a little more than the last. By the end of the night, I was drained. The music faded, the lights dimmed, and laughter turned into soft chatter. I excused myself, stepping out onto the garden terrace for air. The cool breeze hit my face, and for the first time that day, I let the tears fall. I didn't hear Ben walk up behind me until his arms wrapped around my shoulders. "They don't deserve your tears," he murmured. I shook my head. "It's not about them deserving it. It's about me needing to let it out." We stood in silence for a moment, listening to the faint hum of the party inside. "I kept looking at those chairs," I whispered. Every time I tried to smile, they were there, staring back at me. I kept thinking maybe they'll walk in late. Maybe the door will open and I'll see them. Ben tightened his arms around me. "And if they did, I don't know," I said. Maybe I'd forgive them on the spot. Maybe I'd just cry harder. He kissed the top of my head. "You've spent your whole life waiting for them to show up, haven't you?" I nodded, and they never do. The night ended quietly. We drove away in the car decorated by our friends, the words "just married" glinting in the taillights behind us. I watched the city blur past the window, feeling a strange emptiness where joy was supposed to live. Ben reached for my hand. "Stephanie," he said softly, "they made their choice. Now it's your turn." I turned to him, puzzled. "My turn. To choose yourself," he said simply. Something about those words settled deep inside me. Later that night, when I checked my phone one last time, I saw a new post from my mom. Another photo with Lauren captioned, "So proud of our amazing daughter-in-law. She deserves the world." No mention of me. No acknowledgement that I had just gotten married. That was the moment something inside me broke, not violently but cleanly, like a thread snapping. I put my phone down and whispered to the dark room, "I'm done trying to earn love from people who never knew how to give it." And for the first time in my life, I meant it. The morning after the wedding, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the curtains and the faint smell of coffee. Ben was already in the kitchen, humming softly as he poured us each a cup. He smiled when I walked in, but the moment our eyes met, the weight between us settled back in. "You didn't sleep much," he said gently. "Didn't really try," I admitted. I kept replaying everything. The ceremony, the photos, the empty seats. He handed me the mug and sat across from me. "You don't have to decide anything right now." But I already had. By noon, I was standing outside my parents' house, still wearing traces of yesterday's makeup, and a tightness in my chest I couldn't shake. Their car was in the driveway. From the window, I saw them laughing over something on my dad's phone, probably scrolling through photos from the party. I rang the bell. When my mom opened the door, her face lit up like she was greeting a neighbor, not her daughter who'd just gotten married without her parents in the audience. "Sweetheart," she said, brushing her hair back. "Oh, you look tired. How was the wedding?" The question hit like a slap. "You're seriously asking me that?" I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "You weren't there." She blinked, caught off guard, then forced a small laugh. "Stephanie, don't be dramatic. We told you we'd try to make it to the reception. You didn't even call." My dad came into the doorway behind her, his tone defensive before I'd even said another word. "We didn't mean to hurt you. Lauren really needed our help. It was a big event. You know how anxious she gets when things aren't perfect." I took a slow breath, trying to steady my voice. "So because Lauren gets anxious, you decided your daughter's wedding wasn't important." My mom frowned. "It's not about choosing one over the other. We thought you'd understand, Stephanie. You've always been so strong and independent." There it was again, that word. Independent. As if my ability to survive without them excused their absence. "Strong doesn't mean unfeeling," I said quietly. "Independent doesn't mean unworthy." My father sighed, rubbing his temple. "You're blowing this out of proportion. It was one event." "One event," I snapped. "You missed the moment I said my vows. You missed me walking down the aisle. You missed everything that mattered. And you didn't even care enough to lie about why." Silence. My mom crossed her arms, her tone turning defensive. "We can't undo it now, Stephanie. What's done is done. Why dwell on something that will only cause more pain?" I stared at her. "Because pretending it didn't hurt won't make it go away." My dad's voice hardened. "We just wanted to keep the peace. If we hadn't gone to Lauren's, she would have been devastated. You know how emotional she can be." I almost laughed. "And you think I wasn't devastated? Do you hear yourself? You chose the person who married into this family over the one who was born into it." That landed. My mom looked down at the floor gilt, flickering in her eyes, but only for a second. Then it vanished behind that familiar calm mask she always wore when she didn't want to deal with something real. "Can we not do this right now?" she said softly. "We're sorry you feel that way, but—" I cut her off. "No, don't say that. Don't tell me you're sorry I feel that way. Be sorry for what you did." Her lips parted, but no words came out. The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. My dad finally muttered, "You've made your point." My point, as if this were some petty argument about chores, not the emotional abandonment of their own child. I looked around the room, the family photos on the wall, the one from my brother's wedding, framed in gold, Lauren, in the center, radiant and adored. There were no pictures of me anywhere newer than high school. It was like I'd been quietly erased over time. I spent my whole life trying to make you proud, I said softly, and I finally realized it was never about me not being enough. It was about you never looking. My mother's voice trembled just slightly. Stephanie, that's not fair. It's not fair, I agreed, but it's true. I turned and walked toward the door before the tears could spill. My mom called after me. We still love you, you know. I stopped for just a second hand on the doorknob. Then maybe you should start acting like it. The door clicked shut behind me. Outside, the world was painfully normal. Birds chirping, sunlight warm on my face, the faint sound of a lawnmower somewhere down the street. It felt wrong, like the universe should have paused for what just happened. I got in my car, but I didn't start it right away. My hands were trembling. I stared at the steering wheel, trying to process the hollow ache in my chest. It wasn't anger anymore. It was grief, pure and deep. When I finally made it home, Ben was waiting on the porch. He stood as I stepped out of the car, his face soft with understanding. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. He just opened his arms and I fell into them. I tried, I whispered. I really tried. I know, he murmured, stroking my hair. You always do. That night I sat at my desk with a pen and a blank notebook. I didn't plan to send anything, I just needed to say it somewhere. I wrote everything. Every slight, every disappointment, every moment of feeling invisible. The words poured out until my hand cramped. When I finished, I looked down at the pages covered in messy ink and tear stains. It wasn't a letter anymore. It was a release. I whispered to the empty room, I can't keep chasing people who keep walking away. And for the first time, I didn't just feel the truth, I accepted it. The next few days felt like walking through fog, everything muffled, heavy, unreal. I tried to distract myself with small things, washing dishes, folding laundry, scrolling through meaningless news. But every quiet moment brought back the same thought. They really didn't come. I hadn't told many people. I thought maybe if I kept it private it would sting less. But secrets like that don't stay buried long in my family. It started with my Aunt Margaret, my dad's older sister. She'd always been the blunt one, the person who said what everyone else was too polite to voice. She called me 2 nights after the wedding. Stephanie, she said, skipping the small talk. I just heard something from your cousin. Please tell me it's not true that your parents skipped your wedding for Lauren's birthday party. My throat tightened. It's true. There was silence followed by a long, sharp exhale. That's disgusting, she said flatly. I don't even know what to say. Your mother has finally lost it. I wanted to defend them. Even after everything, some small, naive part of me wanted to say it was a misunderstanding. But I couldn't. They said she needed them, that I'd understand because I'm strong. Aunt Margaret let out a bitter laugh. Strong doesn't mean you can't bleed, sweetheart. It just means they've learned to ignore when you do. Her words hit me right in the chest. By the next morning, she'd told the rest of the family. Not out of malice, but because she thought the truth deserved daylight. Within hours, the family group chat, normally filled with baby pictures and dinner plans, turned into a wildfire. Aunt Margaret, can you believe Adam and Lauren's party was more important than Stephanie's wedding? Cousin Leah, what? That's insane. Uncle Rob, wait, they skipped it. Not even for part of the day, Grandma. Please tell me that isn't true. My heart hurts. I watched the messages pour in, numb and detached, like a bystander to my own humiliation. My phone kept buzzing, each vibration another reminder that my parents' choices were now public. By the end of the day, my grandmother called, her voice trembling. Oh, my sweet girl, she said through tears. If I could have traveled, I would have been there. You know that, don't you? I know, Grandma, I said softly. I don't know what your parents were thinking, she continued. It breaks my heart. You deserve their presence more than anyone. That call was the first time I cried openly since the wedding. Not because of what she said, but because someone finally said what I'd been waiting to hear all along. Not everyone was on my side, though. A few hours later, my mom texted me. We heard from the family group chat. I can't believe you dragged everyone into this, Stephanie. We've already apologized. It's cruel to make us the villains over one misunderstanding. My fingers hovered over the screen. Then I typed. I didn't drag anyone into anything. People are upset because they see how hurt I am. That's not on me. I hit send before I could second guess it. She didn't reply. Later that night, Lauren texted too. Her message was sugar-coated venom. Hey, Stephanie, I'm so sorry if my party caused any conflict. I had no idea it was the same weekend. I hope we can move past this and stay close. Family means everything to me. I stared at her message, feeling the bile rise in my throat. Lauren knew. She always knew. She thrived on being at the center of every plan, every conversation, every schedule. There was no way she didn't know my wedding date. She just didn't care. I deleted the message without replying. Meanwhile, my brother Adam stayed silent. No calls, no texts, not even a congratulations. I wondered if he felt embarrassed or just indifferent. It was impossible to tell anymore. The family chat kept burning. Aunt Margaret refused to back down. When my mom tried to post something vague about miscommunication, Aunt Margaret replied publicly, "It's not a miscommunication when you choose a birthday over your daughter's wedding. It's a choice, not an accident." That message stayed pinned at the top of the thread for days. I thought the exposure would make me feel vindicated, but instead I just felt tired. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. I wanted the noise to stop. That's when Ben suggested something unexpected. "What if we throw our own little gathering?" he said one evening, as we sat on the couch, watching the last of the sunset through our living room window. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Something small," he said. "A celebration with the people who did show up, the ones who actually care." At first I resisted. It feels pointless. The moment's over. But he shook his head. "No, it's not. It's yours. You get to reclaim it." Something about that word, reclaim, stuck with me. A week later, we set up a backyard gathering. Nothing fancy, just string lights, simple food, music, and laughter. The people who mattered came Lila, my grandparents, Aunt Margaret, a few close friends. My grandmother brought a gift, a framed photo from the wedding, me and Ben smiling under a canopy of light. On the back, she'd written in neat cursive, "For the granddaughter we're endlessly proud of." I almost cried when I read it. As the night went on, I looked around at the people laughing, dancing, and raising glasses, not out of obligation, but out of love. For the first time since the wedding, I felt something close to joy. Aunt Margaret caught me standing at the edge of the porch and walked over, handing me a slice of cake. "You know," she said, "I think this is how it should have been all along. The people who truly care right here." I nodded, smiling faintly. "Yeah, it feels right." She glanced toward the stars and added quietly, "Your parents will have to live with what they did. That's punishment enough." The warmth of the gathering, the laughter, the genuine affection, it all washed over me, like a balm I didn't know I needed. For once, the emptiness inside me wasn't growing. It was healing. As the night wound down, Ben and I sat together on the porch steps, the sound of distant crickets mixed with soft music from the backyard. He took my hand and said, "We're building our own family now, one that chooses you." I looked at him, the glow of the lantern lights reflecting in his eyes, and for the first time, I believed him. Still, a part of me couldn't shake the unease that lingered in the corners of my mind. Because if there's one thing I'd learned about my parents, it's that they hate losing control of a story. And something told me they weren't done trying to rewrite this one. After that backyard gathering, I thought things would finally calm down. For a while they did. The laughter from that night lingered in the house like a memory that still glowed faintly even when everything else dimmed. But silence has a way of creeping back in. Days turned into weeks. No calls from my parents, no texts, not even one of my mother's signature just checking in messages. It was eerie. The group chat had gone quiet too, like everyone was holding their breath. At first, I thought the silence meant guilt, that maybe they were reflecting, realizing what they'd done. But as time went on, I started to see it for what it was, avoidance. My parents weren't processing. They were pretending. Pretending nothing happened. Pretending I didn't exist. One night I sat on the couch, scrolling through old family photos on my phone. Birthdays, graduations, Sunday dinners. My parents always in the center, smiling while I stood slightly to the side. Always nearby, but never quite in the picture. Ben came over, sitting beside me. "You're doing it again," he said softly. "Doing what?" "Looking for proof that they loved you." I set the phone down, pressing my palms together. Maybe I just want to understand why I wasn't enough. He took my hands. "You were enough, Stephanie. You just grew up around people who needed you to believe you weren't." I didn't answer. His words sat heavy in the air between us, true but painful. The following morning, everything changed with one text. It came from my mother. "We miss you, sweetheart. Can we talk?" 5 simple words, and all the air in the room disappeared. My chest tightened. My first instinct was to respond immediately, to believe this was the moment, the apology I'd been waiting for my whole life. But something inside me stopped. It was the memory of her voice saying, "We didn't mean to hurt you. Can't we just move on?" I'd heard that tone before. It wasn't remorse. It was damage control. Ben noticed the way I froze the phone, still in my hand. "Who's it from?" "My mom." I turned the screen toward him. He read it, then looked at me carefully. "Are you going to reply?" I hesitated. "Not yet. I need to think." That day, I couldn't focus on anything. Every scenario ran through my mind. Her voice quivering with fake guilt, my dad chiming in with calm rationalizations. I imagined walking away from that conversation just as hollow as the day I left their house. So instead of replying, I opened my notes app and started typing. I wrote out what I wanted to say, not what I would. I'm open to talking, but only if you're ready to really listen. Not to defend yourself, not to justify it, but to understand how much this hurt me. I'm done pretending everything's fine. The message felt strong, it felt honest. But I didn't send it yet. I waited 2 days reading it over and over until I was sure the words came from strength, not hope. Then I finally hit send. Her reply came hours later. "We're sorry you feel this way, but we've already apologized. We don't know what else you want from us." I stared at the message for a long time, my pulse steady. Once those words would have crushed me. Now they just confirmed what I already knew. They weren't trying to mend anything. They were trying to move past it without doing the work. I put the phone down and whispered to myself, I can't keep doing this. That night, as the rain tapped softly against the window, I told Ben my decision. "I think I need to step back from them for a while," I said. He didn't try to talk me out of it. He just nodded. "You don't owe anyone your peace, Stephanie, especially not the people who keep breaking it." Over the next few weeks, I slowly detached. I didn't block their numbers, but I stopped responding to texts. When my dad sent a photo of the family dog with, "She misses you," I smiled sadly and put the phone away. It wasn't anger, it was self-preservation. I focused on work, on the small garden Ben and I were growing, on dinners where we laughed until we couldn't breathe. Life started to expand in ways it never had before. But every once in a while, a thought would sneak in. What if they finally get it? What if they reach out again? That hope was the hardest habit to break. Then one evening, my phone buzzed. My mother had posted in the family group chat for the first time in weeks. "Misunderstandings happen. Life's too short to hold grudges. Family should stick together." Aunt Margaret responded almost immediately. "It's not a misunderstanding when you skip your daughter's wedding. That's a choice. Don't twist it." My heart ached, but I didn't join in. I didn't need to. The truth was already there, and I didn't have to fight for it anymore. Instead, I walked outside to the garden. The air was cool, the scent of jasmine soft in the wind. I knelt to pull a few weeds, feeling the earth between my fingers. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that used to scare me, but now felt like peace. I whispered more to myself than to anyone. This silence doesn't hurt anymore. For the first time, that was true. The silence between me and my parents lasted longer than I thought it would. At first, I kept expecting something, an apology, a letter, even a half-hearted phone call. But none came. Days turned into weeks, then months. And with every sunrise that passed without their names flashing across my screen, I felt something unexpected lighter. Healing didn't happen all at once. It crept in quietly. It looked like sleeping through the night without dreaming about empty wedding chairs. It sounded like laughter that didn't carry guilt. It felt like breathing air that wasn't laced with the need to prove myself. But peace has its own way of being tested. One morning while I was at work, my phone buzzed with notifications from the family group chat again. Against my better judgment, I opened it. My mother had posted something vague and performative, just as I'd feared. "We all make mistakes, but family should always forgive. Life's too short to stay angry." It was followed by a crying face emoji and a photo of her hugging Lauren at some new event. Another birthday, another celebration I hadn't been invited to. The old me would have typed a furious paragraph. I would have demanded accountability, begged them to stop twisting the story into something softer and less cruel. But the woman I was becoming didn't take the bait. I simply put the phone down. A few hours later, Aunt Margaret messaged privately, "Ignore her, sweetheart." People like that apologize with their egos, not their hearts. I smiled, thankful for her quiet loyalty. That night, as Ben and I ate dinner, I told him about the message. He listened in that calm way he always did, his thumb brushing absently against my hand. "You didn't reply right?" he asked. "No," I said. "For once I didn't feel the need to." He smiled. "That's growth." After dinner, I opened the old wedding photo my grandmother had given me, the one she'd framed with the note on the back. For the granddaughter we're endlessly proud of. I'd kept it tucked away in a drawer for months, unable to look at it without feeling the ache of what had been missing that day. But tonight felt different. I took it out, dusted the frame, and set it on a shelf in the living room beside a small vase of fresh flowers. For the first time, I didn't see the photo as a reminder of who wasn't there. I saw it as proof of who was. The people who chose to show up. The ones who clapped the loudest, who held my hand when I couldn't fake a smile, who made sure I felt loved, even when my own parents couldn't manage it. Ben came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "You okay?" he murmured. I nodded slowly. "Yeah. For the first time in a long time, I actually am." He kissed the side of my head. "You built this peace, Stephanie. You earned it." Later that week, I got an unexpected call from my brother Adam. His name on the screen made my heart skip part hope, part fear. I let it ring once before answering. "Hey," I said cautiously. "Hey," he replied. His voice was quieter than I remembered. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry." The words froze me. He went on. "I should have done more. I should have stood up to them. I know it's late, but I've been thinking about how wrong it all was." I sat down slowly, gripping the edge of the table. "What made you finally see it?" He sighed. "Lauren asked if we should invite Mom and Dad over last weekend, and I said no. For the first time, I told her no. Because I kept hearing your voice in my head that day you said they always choose her. You were right." My throat tightened. "Adam, I don't expect you to forgive them," he said. "I just wanted you to know I do see it now. And I'm proud of you, Stephanie, for walking away." I closed my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. "That means more than you know." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, the quiet hum of the refrigerator filling the room. I realized something. Then I wasn't angry anymore. The pain had settled into something else, something softer. Acceptance. My parents would probably never change. Lauren would always crave attention. But that no longer defined me. My worth wasn't tethered to their recognition. It never should have been. That weekend, Ben and I took a drive to the countryside. We stopped by a small antique shop on the way home. As we walked through the aisles, I found an old wooden sign with faded white letters that read, "Family isn't who shares your blood, it's who shows up." I bought it without hesitation. That night, I hung it above our dining table, right under the framed wedding photo. I stood there for a while, just looking at both the sign and the picture. Two reminders of two very different kinds of love, one that hurt me and one that healed me. Ben came up behind me, resting his chin on my shoulder. "You like it?" I smiled. "I think it's perfect." He squeezed my hand. "You've come a long way." "Yeah," I said softly. "I finally learned something my parents never did." "What's that?" "That love isn't proven by showing up when it's easy. It's proven by staying when it's hard." I looked once more at the photo, the laughter, the light, the people who had chosen to be there. Then I turned off the light, letting the room fade into the quiet kind of peace that doesn't need permission to exist. For the first time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. And that's when I finally understood sometimes letting go isn't the end of love. It's the beginning of self-respect.